Greetings. I'm Jonathan Enkwitz. I'm the founder of Start With Me, the new dating app that's all about emotional intelligence and self awareness. It's about to hit the App Store any day now, actually. I am creating this series that I'm calling Reflections, where I do about 12 episodes where I talk about some emotional intelligence and self awareness scenarios that have put my life into a different spin than it was originally projected or wanted. So I will dive into some of these scenarios and emphasize some of my own personal experiences. So please be a little gentle in the comments because this is going to get a bit personal. And some of the things I've done are kind of silly. I want to call them dumb, but they're not. They're based off of choices I made with the information I had at the time, with the good intentions. But as I reflect and learn about how they've really screwed things up, they are now really obvious. So today, or this weekend, I was reminded of how important emotional intelligence and self-awareness is. I reached out to someone I believe is a love of my life, who I believe could be the twin flame of my world, my love story. And I learned that I screwed things up really, really bad. Now, I'll tell you the backstory. But when I reached out, I found out they're now engaged. And it crushed me. I'm not going to lie. I've been crying for a couple days now. But the only person I have to blame is myself. I made poor choices thinking I was doing the right thing. So, let me explain. I was reminded this weekend and why I'm on the journey to build Start With Me. A couple years ago, I had a separation, a divorce, that put me into a suicidal spin of depression, and it took me a long time to climb out of. But as I started re-entering the world, I started dating this woman who is the only woman I have ever wanted to call my queen. She has that presence in life. And I was wounded, and I told her, and I was very upfront with it, and she knew, she understood, and she accepted where I was and how I was broken, is the way I classified it and described it. And at first, it was great. It was amazing. Well, it was always amazing, even all the way to the end. But the fact of the matter is as I fell more and more in love with her during our journey, the more and more I clammed up, stepped off, and ran away. In the beginning, when I started realizing that I was in love with her, I clammed up and, oh man, I'm getting a little shaky. I was very much attached to my ex-wife. I did not want the marriage to end. I was absolutely heartbroken. And at that point, the way I described myself was I was heartbroken and I was trying to refine myself and reestablish myself in the world. And I started dating. And I set that forth so that nobody had high expectations that I'd come out the door and fall in love the next day. I'm pretty sure I fell in love with this woman on our first date. I just didn't know what it was because I've never felt love like that. It was very warm and soft and healing, and love I've always experienced has been spicy and invigorating and adrenaline rushing. But the more and more I started realizing my emotions for her, the more I pulled away. I broke up with her once and stepped away. I can't remember how long for, but I had a realization and some healing occurred during that time. And I came back, and there was a huge recognition on my part that I was just a little bit more healed and that I was able to express the love I felt inside more. It felt like I was like, oh, finally, I'm up to like 50% of the love I actually feel. Because inside, I could see how much I loved her. I could see how much I cared, how amazing she was, how important she was. But my ability to express it was muffled. It felt like I was 2 feet underwater trying to say, I love you. And all that comes up is the blip, blip, I like you. Right? And it was just like, I was always falling short. And I expressed that to her too, because I noticed it. I told her, I said, I hate the fact that I can't express how I actually feel because I'm broken. And I held on to that as an excuse. And I convinced myself that that was exactly what the issue was. And as we were growing more and more together, I was healing slightly, very, very, very slowly. And then at one point, we got to a point where I just started slipping and saying, I love you just slipped out. Like, you know, when you feel it to the point where it just like comes out and you have no control over it, it came out. And swear to God, I had a panic attack. I apologized. I was like, no, I'm not ready to use it. It just came out. I didn't mean to. And I had a panic attack. And I even pulled back on it and said, you know, I didn't mean to let that slip out. I'm not ready for it. I hope you understand. I'm sorry. But just do know that these feelings are growing inside of me. And it started getting worse. I started falling more and more in love with her. And I'll never forget it. The day I left her patio, she was standing there. She said it to me. And I didn't say it back. And I left. And inside, it hurt. It felt like I was doing her wrong. I was doing me wrong. But there was a lot of emotions that were stirring up. And I didn't know how to handle them. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, shortly after that, I think this is the spark that occurred that started it. But out of nowhere, I got this craving to betray her. I got a craving to cheat, and I'm not a cheater. I've never cheated. I've never wanted to cheat. It's not in my personality. But I had this thing where it was like I was craving it, and I didn't understand it. And I spent weeks being like, why do I have this feeling? Where is this feeling coming from? Analyzing the relationship. Am I not getting enough attention? Am I not getting enough love? What is going on? And I started diving. And during this entire time, I just kept thinking like, oh, I wish I could express how much love I actually feel. I'm so broken. You know, I'm just like, I don't have the essence of who I am as a human being anymore. Like, I was legitimately broken as a human being. And it went on for weeks. And I, at a certain point, it was just like, I don't know what's going on with this craving, and I don't know what's going on. I'm not able to express the amount of love that I have. I can see it though. Like, it was, I wanted to marry her. When I saw that I wanted to marry her is when I was like, I need to get out of here, because if I stay, I'm going to do something stupid and I'm going to ruin everything with her. And, so thinking that I was doing the honorable thing, I broke up with her. I left. When I went to leave, I was like, you know what? I'll tell her what my intention of this conversation is, and then I'll tell her why. And I'll tell her, like, I don't understand. Maybe there'll be some rectification where I will somehow say something and she'll be like, no, you're not allowed to leave. I was wishing she would. But this was the second time I did this to her, and I told her the intention of the conversation, and it got a bit spicy and kind of ended there, and I never got the reason out. But to me, I told myself, it's okay. You're bad for her. You're dangerous for her. So go, get away. And I left not knowing how long. My initial thought was I would leave, try to heal, and when I'm healed, I'd come back. And I convinced myself that that was a feasible journey, that that was a choice worth making for her sake. and for my sake, and that because our love is so deep and strong that I know when I come back, she'll be all in. Well, I healed. My the big healing turning moment was actually the last hearing of the divorce. It took 3.5 years to settle it. And after the final hearing, I walked out in the parking lot and my shoulders got light, my chest lifted up. I feel like I had an extra 2 inches of breathing room in my chest. I didn't know what was going on, and then I went home and I continued living on. Well, after I left her, I forgot to mention, when I left her is actually when I start with me. That's when I started building the application, the user flow, testing, converting, building. Just the application that's about to come out is what I spent the last 10 months on building and trying to flush out and get to a point. It's just an MVP, but it's got a lot in there about self-reflection and emotional intelligence and starting to learn about yourself and reflecting on aspects of relationships so that you can enter a relationship in a really healthy way. But I stepped away, and this is what I concentrated on. And after that hearing, I woke up every day with life energy. Like my soul felt like it was back. It felt like the crack that was in my heart that's been leaking all my soul energy out. And when I mean like soul energy, I mean like the vigor, the energy to do things, to accomplish stuff, to build things, to become a good person, the energy to go to the gym, to live life to the fullest you could possibly live. And about day 3, I was like, wait, I woke up on the 3rd day, not depressed. I have energy to compete today. What is going on? And I got a massive washover of like, oh my God, what did you do? The woman you're in love with is not here to celebrate with your healing because you ran away. And I spent the next week or 2 going through like, okay, if I go back, I'm going back with the intent to marry. I'm not losing out on this. I'm not missing this chance. I'm not screwing this up again. And I started deep diving and checking all the corners and checking all the boxes and making sure that this was a point of being healed and that I'm not going to go back under this emotional state and ruin things. And I went back and found out she's engaged. I don't blame her. I left her. Someone else showed up, recognized how amazing she was, and was like, dude, you're a keeper. I want you for the rest of my life, and I don't blame them at all. I saw that too, but I told myself I was broken. It hurts a lot, but it was a massive reminder, and this is exactly why I'm building Start With Me. So that you can spend the time to reflect and understand yourself so that you can get ahead of problems of this exact sort that prevent you from finding love. And as I entered the dating world after the divorce is what actually triggered this entire concept, because there's a lot of self-awareness skills that I was missing as well there. And as I've been learning and growing, and I'll cover these all at some point, I learned a lot about myself and who I was. Climbing out of a suicidal depression while going through PTSD therapy with the Marine Corps is quite a feat. For me personally, anyway. It was hard. I climbed my way out, and I learned a lot. But this scenario specifically, the biggest thing I learned, as soon as she told me she was engaged, it just like washed over me, and it was like it removed a filter from my eyes of the choices I made and the behaviors I made and the choices I justified and chose. And I didn't do a lot wrong, but I was selfish. I was all about me. I didn't give as much as I needed to, even though my heart wanted to express it, because I was tied to my ex. I didn't want my marriage to end. And I didn't realize how hooked on I was to it. And I always explained it as an emotional tether to her that I couldn't let go, and even though I wanted it to be let go of. But it taught me a lot on that, like that tether, that pain I was holding on to, my inability to live at my fullest. For me at that time, I didn't realize it. But looking back, I was still stuck on my ex. And the idea of loving someone else was virtually impossible. And I entered the relationship saying that was an acceptable state of being when I started dating. And it showed. I didn't show up. I didn't give the affection and attention I needed. I failed immensely. And looking back, I ask myself, if I spent more time understanding what I was going through, because I was addressing problems. I was still addressing problems that I had in the previous relationship and any problems that arose as well. But there were certain depths of myself that I clearly was avoiding. I was avoiding what I didn't realize that I learned now and I see now is I was avoiding love. I was avoiding love. I was hurt and broken. I was hurt and broken, and I was avoiding the depths of love and expressing love, like somehow admitting it was defying the vows I made in my marriage that had no weight anymore because she left. And that is one of the reasons why self-reflection and understanding yourself is extremely important when it comes to relationships. I ruined a love story in my life that could have been what I believe to be a twin flame level love. And, you know, we're not dead, so, you know, you never know what the future holds, but she's engaged. She's a loyal woman. I highly doubt she's going to leave that marriage to come find me, or that potential. But hold on, that small spark belief that our love was deep enough and strong enough that it could do that. But this is the reason I'm building Start With Me. I'm going to do another video where I explain the entire organizational structure of what Start With Me is and what it's intended to do. And then I'll do another video also talking about the dating app that's coming out. Should be dropping in the App Store any day now. Self-reflections. Spend the time. Ask yourself, if you've been hurt by love, are you actually over it? Are you giving your partner everything you're supposed to be giving them? Are you showing them that how valuable they actually are? Well, stay tuned. I'm going to do a couple more episodes. There's some really big bullet point items that have changed my perspective in life and how I go about living certain things, from being self-aware and emotionally intelligent as I could possibly go, from being a knuckle-dragging monkey who turned into designer and computer nerd. You know, now I'm starting a dating relationship company. It's a pretty intense journey. So I hope that this is a spark of vulnerability that can help encourage somebody else to reflect on themselves. My aim is to help raise the level of emotional intelligence and self-awareness in dating and really set some new standards across the entire planet as we go. And I honestly believe we can do that because we are concentrating on the only thing we actually have control over: ourselves. If we set those standards, we hold those standards, we maintain those standards, we be an example of those standards, we can really set new standards across the entire board. So please join me. Subscribe to the channel. There's going to be a lot more content than just this reflection series coming out. There's going to be some podcasts, some reflections with friends, a lot of other things, educational pieces, a lot of things. This is meant to be a really educational combination of self-awareness and self-discovery as you go through this dating app journey. And then once you find a partner, you move on to our relationship apps and you dive deeper into understanding yourself and your partner and all of those things. There's so much that we have planned, and this is my very first video. So please excuse the quality. I am learning. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm trying to find the emotional connection between everyone and myself and the aim of the mission I'm going, so that we can help evolve relationships into a new level. It's time for a change. Our society has shifted to a mix of online and in person, and we have such a mix of traditions across society. You can't even go into a small town and find somebody from the other side of the world. So there's a lot that's going to be happening here, a lot moving forward. This is what I've dedicated my life to, is building and growing love relationships in the better. And this is just the beginning of the journey. So let's see what kind of impact we can create in the world.